Greetings to you all. It's an honor to present today at the 23rd International Balkan and Near Eastern Congress on Economics, Business and Management. My name is Alexandra Bărbulescu and I would like to share with you our research on the evolution of environmental governance and cooperation in addressing climate change risk. This study was conducted in collaboration with my esteemed co-authors Gheorghescu, Andreea-Miruna, Rantau, and Lobonț, Oana-Ramoana, whose expertise has been invaluable in shaping our analysis. Our research is part of the project Economics and Policy Options for Climate Change Risk and Global Environmental Governance, supported by a grant from the Romanian Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalization, and implemented by the West University of Timișoara. Through a systematic review methodology, we have identified key milestones in climate governance, analyzed the role of institutional frameworks, and assessed the effectiveness of international agreements in mitigating environmental risks. Climate change is one of the most pressing global challenges of our time. Over the last 5 decades, policies and governance structures have undergone significant transformation in response to the growing risk posed by climate change. However, the journey from inaction to coordinated global agreements has been complex and at times slow moving. The primary objective of our study is to critically examine the historical progression of this topic, highlighting both achievements and persistent challenges. In the next part of this presentation, we will walk through the critical turning points in global climate governance, illustrating how scientific investments, political commitments, and public engagement have shaped the trajectory of international climate action. To provide a structured perspective on this evolution, we have chosen to distinguish key phases in the history of climate governance. This framework was designed to capture the major shifts in scientific understanding, policy development, and international cooperation, allowing for a clear analysis of how governance mechanisms have evolved in response to the emerging challenges. By segmenting this history into distinct phases, we aim to highlight patterns of progress, moments of stagnation, and the interplay between scientific advancements and political decision making. From the initial recognition of environmental concerns in the 1970s to the present day urgency for transformative governance, our approach enables a comparative assessment of past strategies, the effectiveness of global agreements, and the persistent challenge that shapes today's climate policies. This structure not only facilitates a more comprehensive understanding of the climate governance, but also provides insight into potential future directions for international cooperation. If we're going to take a look at our picture here, we can see that the 1970s were considered the genesis of environmental consciousness. During this decade, the global awareness of environmental challenges began to take shape. So we can see that 1972 Stockholm Conference on the Human Environment was a pivotal event, marking the first ever major discussion on global cooperation in environmental issues. While climate change itself was not the primary concern, the necessity of worldwide action in environmental problems was established. This momentum continued with the 1979 Climate Conference at Geneva, where climate risk started to gain recognition on the international stage. Next, in the 1980s, scientific and political renaissance began to happen on climate change. This decade saw the fusion of science and policy in the fight against climate change. In 1988, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was established by the UN and the WMO. This was the breakthrough in formally acknowledging the human activities as a driving point of global warming. In the 1990s, the need for institutionalized climate policies gained traction. The 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro led to the creation of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, recognizing climate change as the global challenge requiring collective action. This set the stage for the 1997 Kyoto Protocol, the first ever legally binding international agreement for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. However, political resistance, especially from major polluters such as the United States, created friction in implementing these measures. Going to the next millennium, in the 21st century, opened with a growing sense of urgency. The 2001 IPCC Third Assessment Report providing compelling evidence of the human contributions to global warming. Despite the mounting scientific proof, political divisions deepened. In the 2010s, the strengthening of governments and the rise of climate justice began to have a uprising trend. The 2015 Paris Agreement became a landmark in climate governance, bringing together nearly all nations to combat climate change. The goal was to keep global temperature rise well below 2 grades, aiming for 1.5 grades if possible. And now, reaching the current decade, we can see here a compulsion for action and transformation. The COP26 in Glasgow in 2021 reaffirmed the global commitment to the Paris Agreement, but also revealed the challenges in timing promises into action. The 2023 Global Stocktake provided a sobering analysis. While progress has been made, the gap between current efforts and actual climate goals still remained quite large. Activism took a controversial turn, with some groups engaging in radical attention and seeking actions such as vandalizing artworks in order to raise awareness, but these are just a phase that's not going to bring too much trouble into the future. This historical journey illustrates the complexities of climate governance, from its humble beginnings to the legal frameworks, setbacks, and modern day challenges that we face. Up next, we're going to talk about the systematic review and the research approach that we take for the next phase. Building on the structured framework, we perform a systematic review to analyze the evolution of climate governance with rigor and depth. A systematic review allows us to synthesize significant contribution in the field, ensuring a structured and evidence-based understanding of policy evolution. This method particularly is relevant because it enables to identify key trends, assess the effectiveness of past governance efforts, and highlight persistent challenges that continue to shape international climate policy. By carefully selecting relevant datasets from the web of science and applying transparent criteria for analysis, as seen here, keywords such as environmental governance, climate change, and timeline, we aim to minimize biases and provide reliable insights that contribute to ongoing discussions on climate governance. This approach ensures that our conclusions are grounded in a comprehensive assessment of historical developments, offering valuable perspectives for policymakers, researchers, and also stakeholders that are engaged in climate action. Here, for the sake of the presentation, we have selected 5 key papers for our systematic review, focusing on those most relevant to our analysis of climate governance and international cooperation. These papers were chosen based on their theoretical significance, empirical contributions, and impact on policy discussion, ensuring that our review captures the most influential perspectives in the field. By analyzing the abstracts of these 5 papers, we search the results that Bradland et al. Emphasized the role of social ecological timelines in shaping sustainable coastal adaptation strategies. Golden highlight the need to integrate scientific models with industry expertise in order to enhance fisheries resilience. Garcia Sanchez et al. Link female leadership in corporate boards to improve climate transparency and stronger decarbonization efforts. Sethi and Hall highlight the challenges of climate adaptation in Indian cities, advocating for multi-level governance cooperation. And Lloyd et al. Finally propose a coastal planning framework that merges social and ecological factors in order to create a more resilient coastal community. This one was more of a process thought analysis, but now we're going to go further to the systematic analysis of the 13 selected articles that reveal several key insights, such as the climate governance has shifted from state-centric approaches to more inclusive models, incorporating local knowledge, scientific research, and stakeholder collaboration in order to address complex environmental challenges. The integration of social ecological timelines and the collaboration between scientific theory and real-world expertise, particularly to industries in fishery, provides a pathway for more sustainable, adaptable solutions. Non-state actors such as NGO and private enterprises are increasingly influential in shaping global environmental policies, demonstrating the relevance of multi-level governance. And the importance of participatory methods and community involvement in decision-making processes is highlighting, emphasizing the role of local knowledge in addressing environmental issues correctly and effectively. We can see that the evolution of climate governance has been shaped by key milestones, persistent challenges, and significant advancements, offering valuable insights into the trajectory of global environmental policies. Our systematic review reveals four central findings that help contextualize this evolution. Climate governance has evolved from a fragmented approach to a more structured and legally binding framework. The effectiveness of policy depends heavily on political will, economic incentives, and enforcement mechanisms. The role of international organizations and non-state actors such as we discussed the businesses and NGOs has become increasingly important in shaping environmental policies. While progress has been made, there remains significant gaps in implementation, particularly in developing nations, and major milestones, challenges, and advancements in the climate governance. So we can see that the evolution has been shaped. To put what we said in simpler words, we have four contextualizations from fragmentation to a legally binding framework, policy effectiveness, the role of the political will, economic incentives, and enforcement, persistent gaps into the implementation, particularly in the developing nations, and the growing role of international organizations and non state actors. As we look ahead, it is evident that climate governance must continue to evolve. Traditional frameworks must be adapted to address emerging challenges, including climate finance, technological innovation, and the socio-economic impacts of environmental policies. Stronger enforcement mechanism, greater inclusivity, and deeper collaboration between nations will be essential in ensuring sustainable climate action. We hope that our research contributes to a better understanding of how governance structures can be improved to build a more sustainable and resilient future. Here we also included the acknowledgement of the project that our research is included to. And finally, thank you for your time and thank you for your attention. And I hope you are going to think greener next time you want to make a decision.